Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 601.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the
Jay
Cashflow Diary
Massey.
Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because we are going to talk about opportunity. And it comes in various different forms. Right now, as you are out there in the marketplace, you might be witnessing chaos. And I've always said, where there's chaos, there's cash flow. And that means there's an opportunity for you and I to expand our business, grow our business. Maybe for some of you, this is the perfect time to exit, i.e. sell your business. And what you're doing is you know that. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to find that individual who can help you make that happen. And I happen to have with me today an individual who does exactly that. One, he makes things happen, but most importantly, he makes selling your business happen. And you actually probably already know him because he has been and is known for being the number one business broker. He's been in the likes of USA Today, Forbes, as well as Seeking Alpha. And what's important is right now, today, he's here to help you and I. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to make sure that you are paying attention. Make sure you get that bookmarked finger together and ready so that you can mark the spots when you hear him drop a gold nugget so that you can come back and pick it up. And if you are walking the dog and washing the dishes and doing all those other things that tend to happen, just get ready to hit the back button and listen over and over and over again. Because you and I both know that right now is a great time. So now let's get ready to listen, love, and learn. None other than Chad Peterson. Chad, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate that. I look forward to being on your show.
Yeah. I'm excited, and I can only imagine for a guy that does what you do, this is a unique opportunity. It's a unique time in business. But before we get too far, I've got to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody the first time that they're here. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Excellent. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes, like Batman, Robin, the Hulk. You get the idea. Because I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a number of things in common. For example, as an entrepreneur, I can envision myself flying around town using our products and services and saving people one sale at a time. And yes, I'm probably wearing a cape and mask and tights at that moment, but that's not the point. Also, though, like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. So if you think about Spider-Man, there was a time where he was just a kid going to school, doing his thing, and then one day discovers he's got a superhuman ability because he got bit by a spider, and now he has to choose whether to use his newfound ability for good or for evil. So my question to you is as follows. Besides, the accomplishments that we know you for and your book, Swinging Doors, and all of the other things that you have gone out there, the big notable transactions. I mean, 1 million to 25 million, that's some stuff. Besides all that, what we want to know is, who is Chad Peterson?
It's a wonderful question, and I hope to give you a wonderful answer. I think that if you study people that are driven, the entrepreneurs, the superheroes that you mentioned, it almost always points to something that you kind of touched on, which is where it all began. And I think any hard driving, tenacious, stubborn, you got to be stubborn to be an entrepreneur. You have to see things not only with your eyes, but you have to feel them in your gut in order to push through all the obstacles that are bound to come your way as an entrepreneur. And I think whatever happens in an entrepreneur's childhood is really what defines him, as you mentioned with the Spider-Man comparison. And for me, I'm a very candid person, so I just tell it, the truth as it is. When I was young, I grew up in a very tumultuous house, and my mom was married multiple times, and it was just a rough upbringing. And really, the defining moment for me, Jay, was that I knew that I had to do it on my own, and that's not something that most children ever grasp. In fact, it took me so long to realize that I had such a man's mentality as a young boy that if it was meant to be, it was up to me. And so as a young boy, and I'm talking little, man, I was too little to even be doing the things that I was doing, but something in me just knew that I had to do it. And so I'd knock on doors. I would pick weeds out of flower beds. I would shovel snow. I would mow grass. I would walk dogs. It was in me that if I went and did something that honestly I didn't mind doing, because what am I going to do? Hang around, run around with my friends and do stupid things and ride my bike. It was just like, I'd rather go make a few bucks. So that entrepreneurial spirit was already in me. And as I was a kid and I'd go make $5 here or $20 there or whatever, pretty soon they had to open up a bank account for me because I had accumulated all this money by the time I was like 9-10 years old. I'd go to garage sales. I'd buy something. I'd flip it. I didn't even know what it all meant anyway, but I knew if I bought something for $6, I could turn around and sell it for 10. That was a $4 win. And so I had this real young, and that really defined my life because people became impressed by it. I wasn't impressed by it. It was just something that I saw that was natural, but then people started fostering it in me. And they would say, man, this little kid works his ass off and he does this and does that. And so it reaffirmed me. And so then I became increasingly tired of school. I couldn't stand school. And I was running a business in my teenage years, and I built a company that I was making more money than my teachers in my teenage years. I ended up getting on the work program because all I did was tap my foot in the classroom, and I could not stand it. And the truth of it is I barely made it out of high school, not academically, but because I was so unfit to be in those four walls. I'm a true entrepreneur. Into my bones, I am. And that system just didn't work for me. And it doesn't work for a lot of people. So I ended up building a company. I ended up selling it and moving on to flight school because I told myself, if I'm ever going to work for somebody else, I'll become a pilot. And I became a commercial pilot in 9/11. I was flying a plane in 9/11. I was flying a plane right at Orlando International, where George W. Bush was parked with Air Force One. And I was diverted to Orlando Executive. And I landed the plane, and my career was over in 3 months. And 9/11 had hit officially. And so I just dusted myself back off. And I went right back to my entrepreneurial roots. I built a company. I built another company. I built another company. That's all. I just kept building companies and selling them. Now, the second inflection point of really what made me is in 2007, 2008. I had 120 employees. I was making anywhere from $7 to $10 million a year. We were in the subprime mortgage industry. I had my own warehouse line. I had $5 million of my own money. Mm-hmm. And I got crushed in 2008. So 2001 happened. I lost my flying career. No big deal. Dust myself off, fight through the depression because that's all I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. And what an entrepreneur does is he just says, you know what? I'm going to keep going. Now, when 07, 08 hit and I had just lost $7 to $10 million, man, that was it was real touch and go there for me. I was like, man, I cannot believe this. It was just 7 years after 01, and I'm facing mega loss. And so I went from $7 to $10 million a year to absolutely broke. But I turned lemons into lemonade. And I went out there in a horrible time, which I'm going to compare our current situation of the coronavirus to 2008. because I think that's where we're headed. So the best thing that I could do at that time, because I was so broke, I mean, there's $0 and there's negative dollars, and I was in that negative category because I had 5 leases and I had tons of overhead, and it was just like turning the Titanic. We could not turn fast enough to be able to make up for what had happened to the subprime mortgage industry. It just evaporated in what seemed like about a week or two. And so we're there now. That's exactly where your listeners are at right now. Everybody is in a position where life as they knew it is no longer the same. So what I did in 2008 is I figured out, okay, if I can go out and I can go make $700 to $1,000 a day offering services to homeowners. Well, that's what I did. So it wasn't glamorous, but I went out there and built a company. It was a service business for residential customers. I'd go out there and make $700 to $1,000 a day. Well, I built that company and I sold it. And then I started a different company that was related to home service businesses. And I built it and sold it. Well, along the way, through my path, people have told me countless times, Chad, you're so good at building businesses and selling them. Why don't you help other people do it? And I was doing that already, but I was a free consultant. I wasn't getting paid for any of it.
Right.
And after 07, 08, that's whenever that changed, and I started helping people. And it just grew from there. My book of business, my skill set, the word of mouth, hey, call Chad Peterson. He knows how to help you, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then it just turned into a full-fledged business. And that's how I got here. Does that help you understand?
Oh, 100%. And I have so many questions now. It's so great because there's just so many lessons to be learned from everyone's story. Because there are just so many things. There are always these through lines that really are clear, that tell someone or can communicate to someone who's out there right now listening, trying to build their cash flow or get to their next level, go from 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8 figures, what they might need to do next. Well, and there was something that you said at the beginning that I'm just like, whoa, that's cool. Because you said, and I quote, I knew is a strong word. I had to do it on my own. That is such a profound statement, because many individuals were like, well, I can rely on my mom, or I've got my dad, or I've got my uncle, or I've got someone else who will assist me with whatever it is, being 100% self-sufficient. And then you did the second thing. It wasn't like, oh, woe is me. It became, okay, let's go. And it takes certain individuals, myself, all of us, time to get there, and you got the gift early. I'm curious to know how much of, I guess, just understanding that if it was to be, it's up to me, would you say has played into this entire through line that you just laid out for us?
I would say it has to be every bit of 85% of my success. And my success comes in different segments. I mean, I've had 6 or 7 pretty good sized successes compared to others. Okay. I mean, but compared to some, they're not giant successes. I mean,
absolutely.
Look at Elon Musk. I mean, this guy's owned 4 multi-billion-dollar companies. Yeah. I mean, so, for me, being self-employed, still within orbit, I can go out and I can go make, even in a down economy, I can go out and make $250,000 a year, and I can turn around and sell that business. And to me, that's a big win. But I've had failures too, but not necessarily failures because of what I didn't do or whatever. But when 01 came around and when 08 came around, and now that 2020 is here with this pandemic, right. Those kind of failures should not fall on the shoulders of its owner. But what do we do during these times? Now, I know right now, to your point, I know the government isn't going to help me. My mom isn't going to help me. My dad, my brother, my sister, my woman, whatever. Okay, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. Now, I've had that mentality since I was very young, as you clearly pointed out and reiterated. And it really is 85, 90% of the success. And I'll tell you why. The reason it is the main ingredient of the success is, let's just say you have a full belly. Let's just say it's Thanksgiving. You got a full belly and you're watching football or whatever it is you do, and you're laying on the couch and you got your gal there and you got your dog there and your kids there and whatever. Okay, you're not hungry. You're not hungry at all. And I mean hungry in your soul. I mean hungry in your spirit. Now, if you didn't eat for a day or two, what happens? You wake up. You're like, what do we need to do, guys? Right? Now you become hungry in your soul. And you know that you got to eat. Now, that has been a key role to my survival, because I believe it's the same mechanism. I have to do this. Why? Because I have to eat. Now, I'm far past having to find money to eat, but it's the same mechanism of, I've got to do this. Mm-hmm. This is survival. I'm here to work. I'm here to progress, because unless I progress, I feel like I'm dying.
Oh, man. Truer words have never been spoken, because that's so there. And the thing I want everyone to hear is that you've managed to avoid what many people will unfortunately do, is they blaming something outside of themselves, even though the circumstances, it's not like you had any control over 01, 08, or now, but you didn't stop and go, well, that's why, and now the world owes me. And those are the things that I believe are to be commended, and to help people understand that, like, look, if you are going to be what you say you've always wanted to be, here's how to do it. But now there's something you said that I am completely intrigued by. I have no clue, because there's a reason, though, and I got to know. You mentioned that you knew that I needed to be able to have a home services business that could do between $700 and $1,000 a day. That was not a randomly picked number. There was a reason that was there, and it caught my attention, and I have to know, why that number?
Well, that's a good question. And the reason is because I knew that even during hard economic times, if I could find a service that I could do on a home that was under $1,000, it was still affordable for most Americans. Versus if I went to go do a service that was $20,000 or $30,000 on a home, it would not be affordable. So I went for volume in times of famine. So I went for volume instead of higher price tags. So I knew that people would receive my marketing and they would give up $700 to $1,000 to me for a home service that they thought was valuable in such hard economic times.
So then that becomes the question, based upon, we'll call it Chad's blueprint. Are you saying that volume over is the better, volume over margin? Is that what you're really saying? Or achieve margin?
During hard economic times, for instance, well, by the way, I wrote a book called From Blue to White. It's a working man's guide to self-employment. And I wrote that book in 2000 and I believe 12, which I think that's what it was. I wrote that book in 2012 after the hard economic collapse. And it was just basically a story and a blueprint as to how I made it through those times. Now, I built and sold a company during the hardest economic times, and it was not necessarily because I was married to a concept of lower price versus higher margin. It was just that everybody was complaining about how money was tight. So I knew $1,000 anybody could do, as long as I could make the case that the service I was providing was going to benefit them and not cost them too much money. So I would literally make $700 or $1,000 a day. And if I worked 22 days that month, actually out there in the field doing it, I was making damn good money in hard economic times. Versus if I was selling a higher price service, I would have had way less clients, maybe more margin, but it wouldn't have been a consistent, steady flow of income. And that's really what I wanted during those hard times. So it was definitely a strategic calculation as to how I was going to approach that business based on what people felt comfortable with spending.
Yeah, there was no way that was random. And I was like, that I needed to understand, because there's always a process that gets developed when we've gone through something that becomes the impetus or the way or the path or blueprint, as you say, that you ended up writing about. So talk to me about this, because I know there's a number of people who are experiencing various emotions right now, and probably will for a little while. And one of those big emotions is going to be just the emotion of fear. But you speak of taking more risk when, there's fear in the marketplace, or when someone is afraid. Now, I know what I believe about fear and things of that nature and what we should do, but I'm curious, because you've built, bought, sold during times like this. Why would someone listening, because they, if they were here, they would say to you, but Chad, it's crazy right now. Shouldn't I wait until it's all over?
Hello there, entrepreneur. This is Jay Massey, and what I want to say to you is that the number one mistake that I have ever made in business, number one, has been waiting too long to do the books, waiting too long to get the bookkeepers, the accountants, the CPAs, the CFOs involved, and I don't want you to make that same mistake. That mistake cost me over 6 figures, and now for a significant discount, you have the ability to get your books together using FreshBooks. So what I want you to do is I want you to go over to gofreshbooks.com/CashFlowDiary. Again, that's gofreshbooks.com/CashFlowDiary. FreshBooks is the easy to use software designed to help you, the small business owner, the freelancer, get organized and save time on invoicing, getting paid faster, keeping those books in order so that it becomes a bonus for you to do your taxes as opposed to a burden. Go over to gofreshbooks.com/CashFlowDiary and get started today. And now let's get back to the rest of the story.
Well, you can wait, but there's going to be people that don't wait that make a ton of money during these times. So it would seem logical to wait. I get it. If you give into the fear. But you know what? If everybody takes that mindset, not to get too philosophical here, but if everybody takes that mindset, that's the exact mindset that kills an economy. What people don't understand about an economy is that all it is, and I don't care if you take 4 years of econ class in college, I can boil it down to one thing. An economy is nothing but people exchanging money. And so if you are the contributing factor to that stopping, and you're not changing money with people, you're part of the problem. And right now, we are definitely in an economic collapse. Now, if you're not willing to say that, then you've been bitten too much by the politically correct bug, or you just don't want to be honest with yourself. We are in a total economic collapse right now. Does that mean that there's no way to make money? No. What it does mean is that a lot of people that give in to the fear rather than being opportunistic during this time, they will perish, and they will be looking for the government and handouts and lease forgiveness and mortgage forgiveness and car ownership forgiveness and things like this. And you know what? That goes back to your earlier point. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. The cavalry is not coming. It's up for me to figure out. Now, I will tell you, as a little side note, I started a side business, just about 45 days ago. We were on our way to making probably $20,000-$30,000 a month, and I just started it 45 days ago. And now with this virus, it's changed that trajectory of that business to some extent. People are going to be less likely to purchase from us with the business that we just started. And how we go about conducting that business face to face and being within people's space and possibly spreading and contracting the coronavirus, it's going to change how we do business.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing right now, just as a little side note for your listeners to further the point, yeah, I have that business. We were on our way to making net 25, 30, maybe even more, maybe $40,000 a month. And that's great. But now that that's happened, the coronavirus, I'm shifting gears a little bit. So I'm going to work twice as hard because that's what the market is demanding. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to open up a different service that is backed by insurance money. Why? Because insurance money pays. Yeah. Homeowners, business owners, if they are going to clamp their wallet down and they're not going to be coming off their money, that's fine. I'll re-strategize and go after the guaranteed money, which is insurance money and government money. So I'm opening up another business which requires me to work twice, if not 3 times as hard. But that's what you do. Now, do I have to do it? No, I'm way past the point of survival.
Well, let's be real. You don't have the financial need to do it, but who you are, requires you to do it.
Yes.
You can't not do it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Now, financially, I'm fine, and I don't have to worry about the next meal or the next, $100,000. I don't have to worry about that. But yes, you're right. You put that in scope for me. I have to do it. And that's what makes me TikTok, that's what makes me roll.
Yeah, people ask me that one all the time. I was like, you just don't understand. This completes me. It's like it's like I am not me if I'm not doing this. That's just how it is.
Right.
And now there's something though that I find unique as a person who sells businesses, as you do. Would this still be the time to sell a business? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's still a good time to sell a business. It's still a good time to buy a business. We have to realize that right now we're in a slow time, and it could be 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months where things will be slower. But for you to not move on a 10-year, 15-year journey because of 3 or 4 or 5 months, to me, that's a big sign, a big red flag that should be addressed within that person. If a virus pops up and all of a sudden they don't want to go be self-employed, well, I wonder if you ever really wanted to do it to begin with. I'm not stopping what I'm doing. I'm not. Right. I'm opening up 2 businesses. Well, I just opened up one. I'm opening up another one. I'm not stopping.
Right.
So I think everybody thinks they have balls. Like everybody thinks they're going to skydive. And then that plane door opens at 10,000 feet and everybody's like, whoa, I don't know. Well, that's all this is the plane door is opening up. Now it's real. Now you have to test your entrepreneurial nerves.
Yep.
And it's still a good time. In fact, right now I've got a lot of chain. I've got 3 restaurants for sale. They're chain restaurants and they're actually part of Grubhub. Oh. And it was doing pretty well. It's making about 200,000, maybe 220 a year. It'd be great for somebody to go buy. That's net. It's making 220 net. And now with the coronavirus, because they are Grubhub, their numbers are skyrocketing.
Right.
And it's because they're making sandwiches. It's quick. It's easy. Have them delivered to your house. So it's not the right time to buy every business, but it is the right time to buy certain business. I've got a gun business for sale right now, and that's going to be a hot item because we don't know if a Democrat, and I'm not getting political, but I'm saying if a Democrat gets in there, the worry on gun sales is if a Democrat does get in, that the Second Amendment is in a threat. Well, right. This gun business is going to be hot for that reason too. So it's not the best time for every business, but it's a really great time for some businesses to sell your business and to buy your business. You just have to find one that's recession proof.
Correct. Absolutely. Counter-cyclical. And that's the thing. It takes a lot more critical thinking. You just looking at headlines isn't going to help you in order to make some of these decisions. So I guess one of the things that is curious, that I'm curious about, is that in your journey, you talk about how you were yourself opening up a business and then someone then gives you the idea, why don't you do this for other people? Why do you think that, because I see this often, as entrepreneurs, there are often skill sets or things that we just assume everybody could kind of do it. We don't really it's not that big of a deal, but yet sometimes that could be our very unique zone of genius where we come alive and the marketplace goes, yes, please give me more. Why do you think that goes missed so often?
You mean as far as people finding that sweet spot for themselves?
Yeah.
I think a majority of it is fear, because they don't take that step. It's also critical thinking, like you mentioned. Sit back and think about your life and where you've been and what you've done. And if you think about it long and hard enough, you might find the answer as to what you need to be doing. And there's a real good way to decide if you're on the right path. And that is that if you think about doing something, and let's just say there's a little bit of fear. Now, if there's not a little bit of fear, then you're just not human, and you probably shouldn't do it anyway. There's got to be a little bit of fear, a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of what if I fall flat on my ass? If you don't have some of that, then you're probably not starting off on the right foot. But
you realize right now that somebody like just almost pulled off to the edge of the road. They're like, hold on, wait, did he say there should be fear? Wait a minute.
There should be some. Yeah, there should be some. But the majority of it should be a glowing excitement within inside of you. It should be a hot, burning coal inside of you. And if you don't have that, and it's not the right thing, you should be so excited about what you're doing. And I dare use the passion word too much, but if you're not passionate about it, and passion comes and goes, you could be passionate about something for 3 or 4 years. You don't have to be passionate about it for 25 years. But right now, if you're thinking about doing something, if you have a little bit of fear and a little bit of, man, this could be risky, but then it's overpowered with so much excitement and vigor and joy and hope and dreaming, then you're on your right path. And so I think to your answer is fear, number one. Number two, they're not checking in with themselves to see if they've got that glowing passion within them. Because without that, you won't succeed. And what I tell people in business is, listen, where there's no passion, there's no profit. So I can look at somebody's profit and loss statement, and I can look at the last 3 years, and I can almost without a doubt, I can say, okay, looking at your numbers, you lost your passion back in 2017, didn't you? And they'll say, yes, I did. I'll say, okay, because I've seen 10 to 15 to 20% decline over the last 3 years. Why didn't you call me whenever you were doing well? Well, because we were doing so well. Okay, then I tell people, when you're doing well is the time to sell. And where there's no passion, there's no profit. And what people do is their passion will move on to something else, but they will hold on to their business like electricity would hold on to them if they touched high voltage electricity. They're no longer the one in control of the electricity. The electricity's got them, and they're not going to let it go because it happens to be what's paying the bills. And again, where there's no passion, there's no profit. They will start to dwindle in profits because that glowing passion that most entrepreneurs are driven by, and entrepreneurs are only going to be driven by for so long. And they got to move on to something else, or they got to mix it up. Maybe they got to have a little bit of diversity in their day. They've got to have some other things going on, because most true entrepreneurs will get bored without that passion. And that's really a major component of success, I believe.
Agreed 100%. And I have definitely been through many, many cycles of boredom and excitement, to say the least. To say the least. Now, for those that have listened to this far and either go, hey, well, Chad can be the guy that can help me, get my business sold, or they want to find out more about what you're doing, or, just figure this whole thing out as the economy continues to move. They don't want to be a part of the problem anymore. They think they can be a part of the solution. What's going to be the best way for them to catch up with you?
I encourage your listeners to go to petersonacquisitions.com. And on the website of petersonacquisitions.com, they can go to get the book. If they click on get the book and they fill out some basic information, which, by the way, I don't sell my information. It's just a way for me to contact them. If they let me know that they heard me on your podcast, I will give them a free download of the book. I'll contact them, give them a free download of Swinging Doors, a guide to selling your business, and I'll answer any questions they have, and I will help them establish what their business is worth today So then they can have more faculties to make a decision and whether or not it's the right time to sell now or to wait.
I love that, and I appreciate you being of service in those ways. Now, as we wind down here, I've got a final question for you, because I kind of think I know the answer, but I want to hear it in your words, which I think is going to be fun. So there's a number of individuals listening right now, and in the time that they have listened to you and I go back and forth and talk about, what we do, the economy, the state, and moving forward, etc., they were in one spot at the beginning of this episode, and now they're in another. They're at what I like to call the precipice of decision. And they like, man, I'm going to that's it. I'm doing it. And yet at the same time, like I know that when we get there, we have that little voice that often shows up in the back of our head. And it reminds us of how it didn't work last time. Don't you remember 2008? What about 2010? This is just like 9/11. Be careful. And then for some people, they're related to that voice. So I guess my question is as follows. This time, Chad, they're going to do something different, something unique for them, that they're going to follow through. And they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
As far as taking action during these times?
Yes.
I think right now is a time to, especially right now on the 19th of March of 2020, it's time to really go inside yourself. And like you said, don't just read headlines, but go within. Figure out where you're at. This is a defining moment for people. Ooh. This is 9/11 terrorist attacks. This is 2008 financial collapse. This is 2020 financial collapse. This is the time to take a real solid look at your own personal inventory. Decide where you're at and decide where you can assert yourself in this market. Because taking action without first taking inventory will be a failure. You have to go inward and decide where you're at in this market, what you can bring to the market, what kind of holes are in the market that you could fill. Now is a time to reach out to people. This is biblical. There is safety in the multitude of counsel. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage your listeners to listen to more of your podcasts. I would encourage them to get a hold of you if they need some advice from you. I mean, right now is a time to go within. It's a time to also ask your counsel.
Yep.
Listen to podcasts. Ask people that you respect in business. Reach out to the business leaders of today and assess where you're at before you take action. Because I find that most failures exist without taking such personal inventory and just trying to go do something that's half-cocked. And then, by the way, you can't make a good decision if it's a half-cocked decision because you haven't done what it takes to get really behind your idea and make it happen. So put it this way, I've probably got 200 hours of thinking about the next move I'm going to make, and I just decided what it is.
Yeah.
For my next business to thrive during a time where other people are just going to try to survive. I'm going to try to thrive. Right. But that's because I've gone inward, figured out what I can do, where the holes are at, and I'm chasing money that's guaranteed, insurance money on this next business we're going to open. And by the way, I open up a business, I build it, I sell it. That's what I do. In addition to selling businesses for other people. So I would just tell people to go inside, take inventory, figure out where you're at, pause for a moment, and then be ready to take massive action whenever you decide what the answer is.
I love it 100%. And I definitely appreciate, you taking the leap, the journey, the time, if you will, to be out in front right now. Because I think that's what the marketplace needs. It needs to hear the voice of the small business owner. It needs to hear that, hey, we're not going anywhere. We're pushing forward. In fact, you can push forward with us. You might want to consider that because we can be a part, if not all, of the solution to some degree. So, and I definitely just want to say thanks for taking the time to be here and to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and your insight with us at the Cashflow Diary, sir.
Yeah, and I appreciate being on your show. You're very good at what you do, and I plan on staying in touch with you further and maybe doing this again in the future.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means get over to PetersonAcquisitions.com. Why? When? Now? Why? To get the book and do more. This is the time. Defining moment. Those were words you just heard him use, and that's because it's true. Remember, my moment was back in 2008. That's when I got started in the real estate game. That's when things were falling apart, but it's what you guys hear me talk about today. It is because that market broke that created my opportunity to get in. And I have a strong suspicion that for many of you, this is the same thing. Again, you've heard a master, and now it is your turn to go become the apprentice. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.